I am Blaine, 35 years old, and I was actually looking forward to my birthday for once. Despite the rocky relationship with my brother Travis and his family, I thought maybe this year would be different. My parents insisted on hosting at their house, and I reluctantly agreed. I never expected that my nephew Logan would grab my birthday cake, throw it on the floor, and sneer. "Eat it off the ground, Uncle Blaine." What happened next changed my family forever. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you've ever had to deal with entitled family members. Travis and I used to be close growing up. Just 2 years apart. We did everything together until high school, when things started to shift. While I focused on academics and planning for the future, Travis became more interested in being the popular guy, the life of every party. Our parents always seemed to find his social butterfly nature more impressive than my studious habits. After college, I went into financial advising and steadily built a successful career. Travis bounced between jobs, always with big dreams, but little follow-through. When he met Megan at 24, our family was relieved. She seemed responsible, and we hoped she would provide some stability. They married quickly and had Logan less than a year later. That was 12 years ago, and any hope of Megan being a stabilizing influence disappeared fast. Instead of encouraging responsibility, she and Travis formed a united front of entitlement. They spoiled Logan from day one, never setting boundaries or teaching him respect for others. I can still remember the first major incident when Logan was just 4. During a family Thanksgiving, he deliberately poured cranberry sauce all over my grandmother's antique tablecloth because he wanted attention. Instead of disciplining him, Travis and Megan laughed it off, as kids being kids. My grandmother was in tears, but my parents quickly took Travis's side, saying the tablecloth could be cleaned and we shouldn't make a fuss. This pattern repeated countless times as Logan grew older. At 6, he destroyed a collection of model airplanes I had spent months building when I made the mistake of inviting Travis's family to my apartment. At 8, he intentionally released my pet parakeet out the window because he wanted to see if it could find its way back. At 10, during a family vacation, I helped pay for he deleted important work files from my laptop because I asked him to stop jumping on the hotel bed at midnight. Each time, the response from Travis and Megan was the same: minimizing, excusing, and often blaming me for not understanding children. My parents consistently backed them up, always prioritizing keeping the peace with Travis over addressing the actual problems. Meanwhile, Travis's financial irresponsibility grew alongside Logan's behavioral issues. 6 years ago, when Travis decided to start his own landscaping business, I co-signed the business loan after my parents begged me to help. When he and Megan fell behind on their mortgage 3 years ago, I added my name to save them from foreclosure. Last year, I co-signed on their new car when their previous vehicle was repossessed. Each time, Travis promised to make payments on time. Each time, I ended up covering payments to protect my own credit. Despite my financial assistance, Travis resented my success. Any attempt to offer advice was met with defensive accusations that I thought I was better than him. Megan would back him up, saying I couldn't possibly understand their struggles since I didn't have children. Our extended family had largely given up on addressing the situation. My grandparents, before they passed, expressed private concerns to me about Logan's behavior, but felt powerless to intervene. My aunts, uncles, and cousins gradually reduced their interaction with Travis's family, making excuses to miss events where they would be present. I maintained contact mainly for my parents' sake. They were getting older, and their greatest fear was a divided family. My mother would call me regularly, pleading for patience with Travis and his family, saying, "Family has to stick together no matter what." So when my birthday approached this year, and my mother insisted on hosting a celebration at their house with the whole family, I hesitated, but ultimately agreed. I told myself it was just one day, and maybe turning 35 deserved some recognition. I decided to put aside my concerns and try to enjoy a day surrounded by family even the difficult ones. I never imagined that decision would lead to the complete unraveling of the fragile peace we had maintained for so many years. The day of my birthday arrived with perfect spring weather sunshine streaming through scattered clouds. I pulled up to my parents' suburban home around 3 in the afternoon carrying a bottle of wine and trying to maintain a positive mindset. My girlfriend had offered to come with me, but I declined, thinking it might be easier to navigate family tensions without having to worry about her comfort as well. In retrospect, having a witness might have changed everything. Mom greeted me with an enthusiastic hug. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Everyone will be here soon." She looked genuinely happy to have the family gathering, and I felt a pang of guilt for my reluctance. Dad emerged from his workshop in the garage, giving me a hearty handshake that turned into an awkward half-hug. 35, son. Hard to believe, he said, patting my shoulder. We've got the grill ready to go. The house had been decorated with modest birthday touches. A banner hung in the dining room, and blue balloons bobbed against the ceiling. My Aunt Janet and Uncle Paul arrived next, bringing a wrapped gift and warm wishes. Their grown children, my cousins Allison and Drew, followed shortly after with their spouses. These were the family members I actually enjoyed spending time with, and their presence lifted my spirits. Around 4, my friend Kelly arrived with the cake she had specially made for the occasion. Kelly owned a small bakery, and she had created a stunning chocolate cake with vanilla buttercream decorated with intricate piping work that incorporated elements of things I loved. Mountains for my hiking, passion books for my reading hobby, and subtle dollar signs as a playful nod to my finance career. "This is incredible, Kelly," I said, genuinely touched by her effort. "You really outdid yourself." "Only the best for the guy who helped me secure my business loan," she replied, with a wink referring to the financial advice I'd given her when she opened her bakery 2 years ago. By 4:30, most guests had arrived except for Travis, Megan, and Logan. No one seemed surprised by their lateness. My parents kept glancing at the door, Mom checking her phone periodically for messages. "Travis texted that they're running a bit behind," she eventually announced, "but they're definitely coming." We started the barbecue without them. Dad grilled burgers and hot dogs, while everyone mingled in the backyard. It was actually pleasant catching up with relatives I didn't see often enough. Aunt Janet shared stories about her recent retirement, while cousin Drew talked about his new job. For a moment, I allowed myself to relax into the normalcy of family conversation. At 5:15, the gate to the backyard swung open with unnecessary force. Logan, now 12, barged in first, immediately heading for the food table without greeting anyone. Travis and Megan followed Travis, carrying a small, hastily wrapped gift. "Sorry we're late," Megan announced loudly, not sounding sorry at all. Logan had a video game tournament that ran long. My mother rushed to greet them, acting as if the guest of honor had finally arrived. "No problem at all. We're just happy you made it." "Right, Blaine." I nodded and offered a polite smile, walking over to greet them properly. "Glad you could make it," I said, extending my hand to Travis. He gave me a quick, loose handshake. "Happy birthday, bro. Another year older." Logan had already filled a plate with food and was sprawled in a lawn chair, his feet up on another chair meant for other guests. When he saw me looking, he made a point of taking an enormous bite of burger, chewing with his mouth open. "Logan, say happy birthday to your uncle," Megan prompted, though her tone lacked any real expectation. "Happy birthday," he mumbled without looking up from his phone, food still visible in his mouth. The energy of the gathering shifted with their arrival. Conversations became more guarded, laughter less frequent. I noticed Aunt Janet subtly move her purse closer to her chair when Logan wandered near. Uncle Paul, who usually loved sharing stories, became unusually quiet. Throughout the next hour, Logan's behavior escalated from merely rude to increasingly disruptive. He interrupted conversations, knocked over a drink accidentally on cousin Allison's dress, and complained loudly about the boring party. Travis and Megan ignored most of it occasionally, offering weak redirections that Logan completely disregarded. "Boys will be boys," Travis said with a shrug, after Logan deliberately popped several balloons, startling my elderly neighbor, who had stopped by briefly to wish me happy birthday. My mother continuously ran interference, offering Logan special treats and attention to keep him occupied. My father retreated to his familiar role of pretending not to notice problems, focusing intently on cleaning the grill. By 7 o'clock, as the sky began to dim, Mom announced it was time for cake and presents. Everyone gathered around the dining room table, where Kelly's beautiful cake was displayed. I couldn't help but feel a surge of anticipation despite the tension. The cake truly was a work of art, and Kelly stood nearby, clearly proud of her creation. As everyone sang happy birthday, I noticed Logan watching the cake with an intensity that made me uneasy. The song concluded, and Mom said, "Make a wish, Blaine." I leaned forward to blow out the candles, unaware that this simple birthday tradition was about to trigger a series of events that would permanently alter our family dynamic. The candles flickered as I leaned in to blow them out. Everyone was watching cameras, ready to capture the moment. I made a simple wish for peace and harmony in the coming year, a wish that would prove tragically ironic within minutes. As I straightened up, Mom handed me the cake knife. "Would you like to do the honors, birthday boy?" I nodded and positioned the knife at the edge of the cake, admiring once more the detailed work Kelly had put into it. That's when Logan suddenly lunged forward, pushing between his mother and Aunt Janet. "I want to cut it," he demanded, reaching for the knife in my hand. "Logan, wait your turn," Megan said half-heartedly, making no actual move to stop him. I held the knife slightly higher out of his reach. "I'll cut the first piece, Logan. Then maybe you can help with the others if your parents say it's okay." His face contorted with rage at being denied. Before anyone could react, he slammed both hands onto the edge of the cake, sending it flying off the platter. The cake seemed to hang in the air for a split second before hitting the floor with a dull splat, frosting splattering across the hardwood and onto several people's shoes. A collective gasp filled the room. Kelly's hand flew to her mouth in shock. But Logan wasn't finished. He pointed at the destroyed cake on the floor, looked me directly in the eyes, and sneered. "Eat it off the ground, Uncle Blaine." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the background noise of the neighborhood seemed to fade away. Every adult in that room knew this was a pivotal moment. A line crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. I stared at my nephew then, at the ruined cake, Kelly's hours of work destroyed in an instant. Then I looked at Travis and Megan, waiting for their response. To my disbelief, Travis chuckled. An actual laugh escaped him before he caught himself. Megan's lips twitched upward before she controlled her expression. "Logan." She finally said, her tone more appropriate for a minor infraction, like forgetting to put away toys that wasn't nice. "He's just a kid," Travis added quickly, addressing the room rather than his son. "He doesn't understand how his actions affect others yet." My father shifted uncomfortably. "Accidents happen," he muttered, though everyone in that room knew there was nothing accidental about what had just occurred. My mother immediately went into damage control mode. "It's okay, we have ice cream in the freezer. We can still celebrate." I felt a strange calm wash over me, like I was watching the scene from outside my body. In that moment, I understood with perfect clarity that nothing would ever change. Logan would continue his destructive behavior. Travis and Megan would continue to enable and excuse it. My parents would continue to prioritize keeping Travis happy over all else. This cycle had been repeating my entire life, and would continue indefinitely unless someone broke the pattern. Without a word, I knelt down and began picking up pieces of the ruined cake. Kelly quickly joined me, grabbing napkins from the table. "I am so sorry, Blaine," she whispered. "I can make you another one." "Not your fault," I replied quietly. I could hear the murmurs around us. Aunt Janet's disapproving. "That boy needs discipline," And Uncle Paul's agreement. I heard Cousin Allison's husband whisper, "If our kid ever did that." My awareness extended to Travis and Megan, who had moved to the corner and were now on their phones as if the incident was already forgotten. My mother hovered anxiously. "Blaine, honey, don't worry about cleaning up. I'll take care of it. Let's move on to presents." I stood up, cake remnants now contained in a trash bag. I looked around the room, taking in each family member's expression. Some showed sympathy, others discomfort, and a few, like my cousin Drew, showed understanding as our eyes met. "Thank you all for coming," I said calmly. "I think I'm going to head home now." Protests erupted immediately. "But you haven't opened your presents," Mom exclaimed. "Son, don't let this ruin the whole party," Dad added. Travis finally looked up from his phone. "Come on, bro, don't be so sensitive. Kids make messes." I shook my head. "I'm not upset about the mess. I'm just tired. It's been a long day." I walked around thanking each guest personally for coming. When I reached Kelly, I hugged her tightly. "The cake was beautiful. Thank you for your hard work." "Call me later," she whispered, concern evident in her eyes. When I approached Travis and Megan to say goodbye, they barely looked up. Logan was now in the corner playing a game on Travis's phone, completely unconcerned with the chaos he had caused. "Leaving already?" Travis asked, not hiding his annoyance. "Mom and Dad went to a lot of trouble for this party." "Yes, they did," I agreed. "Give Logan a goodbye from me." My parents followed me to the door, Mom nearly in tears. "Please don't go, Blaine. We can salvage the evening." "I know you mean well, Mom. I just need some space right now. I'll call you tomorrow." Dad cleared his throat. "Your mother worked hard on this party. Seems ungrateful to leave early." I looked at him for a long moment. "I appreciate everything you both did. This isn't about the party. I just need to go home now." The drive home was surreal. Streetlights blurred as I processed not just what had happened but my own reaction to it. For the first time, I hadn't immediately forgiven, hadn't tried to smooth things over, hadn't accepted the unacceptable for the sake of family harmony. Instead, I had simply removed myself from the situation. It felt foreign, yet liberating. As I pulled into my driveway, my phone chimed with a text message. Assuming it was Kelly checking on me, I glanced at the screen. Instead, I saw my mother's name, and a message that would forever change my relationship with my family. "We've chosen to sever all contact. Stay away forever." I stared at my phone screen, reading and rereading the message. Sure, I must have misunderstood. "We've chosen to sever all contact. Stay away forever." It made no sense. I had left a birthday party early after my nephew destroyed my cake and told me to eat it off the floor. How had I become the villain in this scenario? I scrolled up, checking if I had missed previous messages that might provide context. There were none. As I sat in my darkened car, another notification appeared. Travis had liked Mom's message in our family group chat. Then, another text from Megan appeared. "Logan is crying because of how you treated him. He said you gave him a mean look when you left. He's just 12 years old, Blaine. What kind of man makes a child feel bad?" My confusion gave way to disbelief, which quickly transformed into a simmering anger. I had remained completely calm during the incident. I hadn't raised my voice, hadn't lectured. Logan hadn't done anything except clean up the mess and leave quietly. Yet somehow I was now being portrayed as the aggressor. My father added his contribution. "Your mother is very upset. Family comes first, son. Always has. Your attitude lately has been unacceptable." More messages poured in, each more accusatory than the last. According to the emerging narrative, I had somehow ruined my own birthday party by overreacting to a small mistake by Logan. Travis claimed I had been cold and dismissive toward his family all evening. Mom insisted I had embarrassed her in front of the extended family by leaving early. Not a single message mentioned Logan's behavior or his cruel command to eat cake off the floor. I stepped out of my car and walked into my house, phone still clutched in my hand as it continuously buzzed with new notifications. Once inside, I sank onto my couch feeling a strange mixture of hurt, anger, and something else I couldn't immediately identify. It took me a moment to recognize it as relief. Some part of me had been waiting for this break, knowing it was inevitable. As the accusations continued to flood in, my thoughts turned to the financial entanglements that bound me to Travis and his family. The mortgage I had co-signed when they faced foreclosure 3 years ago. The business loan for Travis's perpetually struggling landscaping company. The car loan I had guaranteed just 6 months earlier, when their previous vehicle was repossessed. For years, I had been their financial safety net. Each time they needed help, my parents had pressured me to provide it. "He's your brother," they would say. "Family has to help family." And each time, Travis had promised to make payments on time, to be responsible to get his finances in order. Each time, I ended up making payments to protect my own credit score. I opened my financial tracking app and calculated the total amount I had directly loaned to Travis over the years, separate from the loans I had co-signed. It came to just over $28,000. Money I never expected to see again, that I had mentally written off as the price of family harmony. I pulled up my document storage app next, locating the various loan agreements. The mortgage document clearly stated that, as a co-signer, I could petition to have my name removed if certain conditions were met. The car loan had similar provisions. The business loan was more complicated but not impossible to untangle myself from. For the first time, I allowed myself to consider what had previously been unthinkable. What if I actually followed through on removing my financial support? What if I prioritized my own financial security over keeping Travis afloat? My phone continued to buzz. "Travis, now Mom and Dad are really disappointed in you, bro. You've always been selfish, but this is a new low." That was the breaking point. After years of financial support, after countless instances of biting my tongue when Logan misbehaved, after always being the one to compromise for family peace, I was being called selfish. I began drafting a response, deleting and rewriting several times. My first attempts were emotional defensive. I wanted to list every loan, every payment, every instance of disrespect I had endured. But I realized that approach would only feed the drama. Instead, I opted for something simple but consequential. I took a deep breath and typed, "Removing my name from every loan tomorrow." My thumb hovered over the send button for several seconds. I knew that once sent there would be no going back. This wasn't just about standing up for myself after the cake incident. This was about ending a pattern of financial dependency and emotional manipulation that had persisted for years. I pressed send. For 2 full minutes, there was silence. No new messages appeared. I imagined the text being read by my family members, the implications slowly sinking in. Then my phone exploded with activity. First came Travis's call, which I declined. Then Mom's, which I also ignored. Then a flood of new messages in the group chat. "Travis, what are you talking about? You can't do that, Mom Blaine. Answer your phone right now. Dad, son, you're overreacting. Let's talk about this. Megan, you would put our home at risk because of a birthday cake." The tone had shifted dramatically. The righteous indignation was rapidly being replaced by panic. I set my phone on the coffee table and walked to the kitchen to pour myself a glass of water. When I returned, there were 17 missed calls and over 30 new messages. I turned off all notifications except for calls and texts from my boss, close friends, and clients. Then I went through my evening routine as if it were any other night. Shower, pajamas, a chapter of my current book. All while my phone screen continuously lit up with my family's increasingly desperate attempts to reach me. Just before midnight, I checked the final count, 53 missed calls, and over 100 messages in the family group chat. I turned off my phone completely and went to bed, sleeping more soundly than I had in years. Morning sunlight filtered through my bedroom blinds as I woke naturally without an alarm. For a moment, I existed in the peaceful space between sleep and full consciousness before the events of the previous day came flooding back. I reached for my phone on the nightstand and turned it on, bracing for the barrage of notifications. The count was staggering. 53 missed calls, over 200 messages, and numerous voicemails. I ignored them all and made a different call instead. Patricia Williams' Law Office. How may I help you? This is Blaine Johnson. I have an appointment with Patricia at 9 this morning. Yes, Mr. Johnson, she's expecting you. See you soon. I had called my lawyer late the previous night, leaving a message about my situation. She had texted back almost immediately, offering a morning appointment. Patricia had handled my will and other legal matters for years, and I trusted her judgment completely. After a quick shower and breakfast, I drove to her downtown office, deliberately taking a route that wouldn't pass near my parents' or Travis's homes. Patricia greeted me with a firm handshake and ushered me into her office. So she said, once we were seated, you want to extricate yourself from multiple family loans. Walk me through the specifics. For the next hour, we reviewed every financial entanglement I had with Travis. The mortgage on their family home, where I had added my name as co-signer when they faced foreclosure. The business loan for Travis's landscaping company, which had never turned a profit despite his grand projections. The most recent car loan after their previous vehicle had been repossessed due to missed payments. Patricia took detailed notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. Legally, your position is stronger than I initially thought. The mortgage has a co-signer release clause after 24 consecutive on-time payments, which they haven't achieved. The business loan lists specific conditions under which you can withdraw your guarantee, including misrepresentation of business finances, which seems applicable given what you've told me. The car loan is the simplest, as it allows for co-signer release at any time, though it would likely trigger immediate payment requirements for your brother. She leaned forward. But Blaine, I need to be clear about what this means practically. If you remove your name from these loans, your brother and his family will face immediate financial consequences. The mortgage lender will likely begin foreclosure proceedings. The business loan will probably be called in full. The car could be repossessed. I nodded, the weight of the decision heavy on my shoulders. I understand. But I've been covering their financial irresponsibility for years. They've made no effort to change their habits. And after yesterday, I briefly explained the birthday cake incident and the subsequent text messages. Patricia listened without judgment. Family law and family dynamics are rarely straightforward, but from a purely legal standpoint, you have every right to protect your own financial interests. I can begin the paperwork today if that's what you want. It is, I confirmed. By the time I left Patricia's office 2 hours later, the process was underway. She had drafted letters to each financial institution, citing the relevant clauses in each agreement that allowed for my removal. She had also prepared a formal document for Travis to sign, acknowledging that I would no longer be responsible for any of his debts. As I walked to my car, my phone rang. It was Travis. After 27 ignored calls, I decided it was time to answer. Blaine. What the hell, man? You can't just bail on these loans. Do you know what this will do to us? His voice had none of the righteous indignation from the previous night. Now it was pure panic. I'm not doing anything impulsive, Travis. I replied calmly. I've consulted with my lawyer, and I'm exercising the legal rights outlined in the loan agreements that you signed. But we'll lose everything. The house, my business, everything. Only if you can't make the payments yourself, which has always been your responsibility. You know, we can't afford the payments without your help. Mom and Dad are freaking out. They say you're trying to destroy the family. I took a deep breath. The family was quite comfortable severing all contact with me last night. Mom's exact words, if you recall. And you liked that message, Travis. You endorsed the idea of cutting me out of the family. Actions have consequences. That was just Mom being emotional. You know how she gets. And I only liked the message because, well, I was upset about how you treated Logan. How I treated Logan. I cleaned up the cake he destroyed and left without saying a word to him. He's just a kid. Blaine kids make mistakes. He's 12, not 4. And he didn't just make a mistake. He deliberately destroyed my birthday cake and told me to eat it off the floor. That's not childish misbehavior, it's calculated cruelty that you and Megan have enabled for years. There was a long pause before Travis spoke again, his voice shifting to a pleading tone. Look, I'm sorry about what happened. Logan is sorry too. He's been crying all morning about possibly losing his home. Can't we talk about this in person? As brothers. You can come to Patricia Williams's office this afternoon at 3 to sign the acknowledgement of my withdrawal from the loans. That's the only in-person meeting I'm willing to have right now. Blaine, please. Mom and Dad are beside themselves. They say if you do this, it will kill them. I have to go, Travis. 3 o'clock at Patricia's office. I hung up before he could respond and drove to a coffee shop to work remotely for the rest of the morning. By noon, my parents had also begun calling. I let their calls go to voicemail, but listened to the messages. Mom's voice was tearful. Blaine, sweetheart, please call us. We didn't mean what we said. We were just upset. Family doesn't give up on family. Dad was more direct. Son, this financial stunt is beneath you. Your mother hasn't stopped crying. Is that what you wanted? Call us immediately. Around 1:30, I began receiving calls from extended family members. Aunt Janet was the first. Blaine, it's your Aunt Janet. I'm hearing all sorts of things from your parents about you cutting off Travis financially. I just wanted to say, well, after what happened at your birthday, I can't say I blame you. Logan's behavior was appalling, and your brother and his wife did nothing. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Uncle Paul called next. Hey, Blaine. Just checking in. Your dad called me pretty worked up about some financial situation with Travis. Listen, I saw what happened yesterday. No one would blame you for finally setting some boundaries. Call me if you need anything. By 3 o'clock, I was back at Patricia's office. To my surprise, Travis actually showed up, though he was 20 minutes late. He looked disheveled, his eyes red, either from crying or lack of sleep. Patricia explained the documents dispassionately. Travis tried to argue, to negotiate, to plead, but ultimately faced with the clear legal language of the original loan agreements, he signed the acknowledgement. I hope you're happy, he said as he stood to leave. You've destroyed my family. No, Travis, I replied quietly. I've stopped enabling the destruction of my own financial future. There's a difference. After he left, Patricia assured me she would file everything immediately. It will take some time for all the paperwork to process, she explained. But legally, you've taken all the necessary steps. The financial institutions will contact your brother directly about new payment arrangements. As I drove home, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. There was guilt, yes, but also an unfamiliar sense of liberation. For years, I had defined my role in the family as the responsible one, the fixer, the provider. That identity had become so ingrained that breaking free of it felt almost like losing a part of myself. But underneath that loss was something new and hopeful. The possibility of a life defined by my own choices rather than by my family's expectations and demands. My phone continued to ring throughout the evening. I answered calls from a few supportive extended family members, but continued to screen out my parents and Travis. By bedtime, the missed call count had reached 86. I slept fitfully that night, my dreams filled with images of birthday cakes falling in slow motion and houses crumbling into dust. But when I woke the next morning, my resolve remained intact. For the first time in my adult life, I had prioritized my own well-being over maintaining a harmful family dynamic. The road ahead would be difficult, but I knew with absolute certainty that I had made the right choice. The weeks following my decision unfolded like scenes from a drama I was both part of and removed from. Travis faced the immediate consequences of his financial reality, just as Patricia had predicted. The car was repossessed, first gone within 10 days. The business loan was called due in full when the bank reviewed his financial records and discovered he had misrepresented his company's income. And the mortgage lender began sending foreclosure warnings when he missed the very next payment. Through it all, my parents continued their campaign to make me reverse course. Their tactics evolved from angry accusations to guilt trips, to desperate pleading, sometimes cycling through all three in a single conversation. "We raised you better than this," Dad growled during one of the few calls I answered. "Your brother and his family might end up homeless," Blaine Mom sobbed during another. "Is that what you want on your conscience?" What they never offered was an acknowledgement of why I had taken such drastic action or any recognition of the years of financial support I had already provided. In their narrative, I remained the villain, the selfish son, who had abandoned his family obligations on a vindictive whim. Travis's approach was similarly self-serving. After his initial shock and anger, he shifted to a strategy of partial apology combined with continued expectation of rescue. "I know Logan was out of line at your party," he conceded in a text 3 weeks after the incident. "And Megan and I should have handled it better. But does that really justify destroying our lives? We're family, Blaine. Family forgives." What he didn't say was more revealing than what he did. There was no acknowledgement of the years of enabling Logan's behavior, no recognition of the financial burden he had placed on me, and certainly no genuine commitment to change. Through all of this, I maintained my boundaries. I answered some calls, ignored others, and consistently redirected financial pleas to resources that might actually help them. Help themselves. Financial counseling services, mortgage assistance programs, job placement agencies for Megan, who had not worked in years. Meanwhile, the extended family began taking sides. To my surprise, many supported me. Aunt Janet and Uncle Paul had witnessed Logan's behavior at the party and had apparently been concerned about his increasing aggression for years. "That boy has been heading down a troubling path," Aunt Janet told me over lunch 4 weeks after my birthday. "And your brother and his wife refuse to see it." Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop shielding them from the consequences of their actions. Cousin Drew and his wife invited me to dinner where they shared their own stories of avoiding family gatherings because of Logan's behavior. Last Christmas, he deliberately broke the ornament my grandmother gave us before she died. Drew's wife confided. "Travis and Megan just laughed it off as kids being kids. But Drew and I decided then we wouldn't bring our own children around Logan anymore." Not everyone was supportive, of course. My father's brother, Uncle Steve, called to tell me I was being cruel and unforgiving. "Family sticks together no matter what," he insisted, echoing my father's mantra. A few more distant relatives took similar positions, usually without knowing the full story. But the most surprising support came from my mother's sister, Aunt Carol, who had always been close to my mother and rarely disagreed with her on family matters. She called me about a month after the incident. "Your mother doesn't know I'm calling you," she began, "and she'd be furious if she found out. But I need to tell you something, Blaine. I've watched for years as your parents enabled Travis's irresponsibility. I've tried to talk to your mother about it, but she always defends him. She and your father have this blind spot when it comes to Travis. They've always protected him from consequences, just like Travis and Megan do with Logan. She paused before continuing. What you did took incredible courage. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. Sometimes, it's the most loving thing you can do. I just wanted you to know that someone in the family understands that. These conversations helped me navigate my own emotional journey through this family upheaval. In the quiet moments alone, I sometimes doubted my decision. The childhood programming to prioritize family harmony above all else ran deep. But with each passing week, I found myself standing a little taller, breathing a little easier. I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Franklin, who specialized in family dynamics. In our sessions, I explored patterns that had been established long before Logan threw my cake on the floor. What we're really talking about here is differentiation. Dr. Franklin explained during our third session. It's the process of defining yourself as separate from your family of origin. It's about being able to maintain your sense of self while still being connected to your family. But in families with unhealthy dynamics, any attempt at differentiation is often treated as betrayal. Those words resonated deeply. My entire life, I had been trying to maintain connections to my family while also trying to live according to my own values. I had been largely unsuccessful because any deviation from my assigned role was met with accusations of disloyalty and selfishness. 6 weeks after my birthday, Travis made what appeared to be a sincere attempt at reconciliation. He asked to meet for coffee without Megan or our parents' knowledge. Against my better judgment, I agreed. He looked haggard when he arrived at the coffee shop. The stress of his financial situation had taken a visible toll. We're moving in with Mom and Dad. Next month, he admitted after we had exchanged awkward greetings. The house is definitely being foreclosed on. My business is basically gone. We're driving a car Megan's parents loaned us. I nodded but offered no immediate solution. Look, Blaine, I know I messed up. Not just with Logan and your birthday, but with everything. The loans, the business, all of it. I've never been good with money like you are. I've never been as responsible. I guess I've always resented that about you, which is pretty messed up when you think about it. Resenting someone for having their shit together. It was the most honest Travis had been with me in years, maybe ever. I felt a glimmer of hope. I appreciate you saying that, Travis. It means a lot. He stared into his coffee cup for a long moment. So, I was thinking maybe we could start fresh. Brothers. You know. And maybe you could help me figure out a plan for getting back on my feet. Financially, I mean. And there it was. The half apology, followed by another financial request. The pattern continuing, just with slightly more self-awareness. I'm happy to reconnect as brothers Travis. But I can't get financially involved again. I can recommend financial counselors help you work on your resume. Things like that. But no loans, no co-signing, no direct financial support. His expression hardened. So that's it. You'll let my family suffer to teach me some kind of lesson. It's not about teaching anyone a lesson. It's about maintaining healthy boundaries. I can support you without enabling behaviors that ultimately hurt both of us. He stood abruptly. Save the therapy talk, Blaine. I thought you might actually want to help your family. But I guess your money means more to you than we do. As he stormed out, I felt a familiar pang of guilt, quickly followed by the newer, still unfamiliar sense of standing in my truth. I had offered help, just not the kind he wanted. I had extended connection without compromise. That he couldn't accept it said more about him than about me. 2 days later, I received an invitation to a family dinner at my parents' house. The text came from Mom with the clear implication that this would be an opportunity to put all the unpleasantness behind us and be a family again. I suspected it would actually be an orchestrated guilt trip with multiple family members present to pressure me into resuming financial support of Travis. After careful consideration and a consultation with Dr. Franklin, I declined the invitation. Instead, I suggested meeting with my parents alone, at a restaurant of their choosing. They refused, confirming my suspicion about the true purpose of the family dinner. By the 2-month mark after my birthday, a new family dynamic had clearly emerged. There were those who respected my boundaries, even if they didn't fully understand them, and those who viewed my boundaries as an ongoing betrayal. I found myself spending more time with the former group, building deeper connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I also expanded my social circle beyond family, reconnecting with old friends and making new ones through a hiking club I joined. These relationships, freely chosen and mutually nurturing, provided a stark contrast to the obligation-laden interactions with certain family members. Through it all, Logan's behavior reportedly worsened. Without me as an outlet for his aggression, he turned it toward others. My parents, now hosting Travis's family in their home, experienced firsthand the behaviors I had been describing for years. According to Aunt Janet, who still visited them regularly, Logan had broken several items in their home, spoken disrespectfully to my mother, and refused to follow any household rules. Your father tried to implement a no video games after 9 p.m. rule, she told me. Logan screamed at him and said he wasn't his real grandfather, so he couldn't tell him what to do. Travis and Megan were right there and said nothing. Part of me felt vindicated by these reports, but mostly, I felt sad. Sad for my parents who were finally experiencing the consequences of the family dynamics they had helped create. Sad for Logan, whose parents had failed to provide the structure and guidance he needed. Even sad for Travis and Megan, who seemed trapped in patterns they couldn't or wouldn't break. But with that sadness came a strengthening resolve. I could not fix their problems. I could not save them from themselves. I could only continue my own journey of growth and healing, setting an example of what healthy boundaries look like and hoping that someday they might be ready to follow that example. 6 months passed, and my 36th birthday approached. The date carried emotional weight, now a marker of both painful rupture and powerful transformation. I decided that rather than ignoring the day or treating it as something to get through, I would reclaim it as a celebration, but on my own terms. I rented a pavilion at a local park and invited the people who had supported me through the past 6 months. Friends, both old and new extended family members, who had respected my boundaries, colleagues who had become friends. I specifically asked for no gifts, just their presence, and perhaps a dish to share for the potluck-style gathering. The day arrived with perfect early autumn weather. Warm sunshine filtering through trees, beginning to show hints of gold and crimson. Kelly, still, my steadfast friend, insisted on making a cake despite my protests. "Trust me," she said. "With a wink, this one will make it to the table intact." People began arriving around noon, each greeting me with genuine warmth. Aunt Janet and Uncle Paul brought their signature potato salad. Cousin Drew and his wife came with their young children, who immediately raced toward the playground adjacent to our pavilion. My hiking club friends arrived as a boisterous group, carrying trail mix cookies and thermoses of hot cider. Colleagues from work set up a portable speaker system and started a playlist of my favorite songs. Dr. Franklin had encouraged me to invite my parents and Travis's family as well, suggesting it could be an opportunity for reconciliation if they were willing to respect the new boundaries. I had sent the invitation with low expectations, and those expectations were met. Mom replied with a terse message saying they had other plans but hoped I would have a nice day. Travis didn't respond at all. But their absence didn't diminish the joy of the gathering. If anything, it highlighted how much healthier my social circle had become. These were people who valued me for who I was not, for what I could provide. They respected my boundaries, celebrated my successes, and supported me through challenges without judgment or manipulation. As we gathered around the tables laden with food, Aunt Carol arrived slightly out of breath. "Sorry I'm late," she said, giving me a quick hug. "I had to wait until your mother left for her garden club meeting before I could leave. She still doesn't know I've been in touch with you." "I appreciate you coming," I told her sincerely. "It means a lot." "I wouldn't miss it," she replied. "Besides, I brought news. Your parents are finally starting to set some boundaries with Logan. Last week he broke your mother's china teapot, the one that belonged to her grandmother. Instead of making excuses for him, your father actually grounded him, took away his video games for 3 days. Travis and Megan were furious, but your father stood firm. I felt a complex emotion hearing this, something between hope and vindication. That's progress, I guess. Baby steps, Aunt Carol agreed. But steps nonetheless. Your stand has had ripple effects, Blaine. More than you know. After everyone had eaten their fill, Kelly brought out the cake. It was simpler than the elaborate creation from my previous birthday, but beautiful in its clean design. A single-layer chocolate cake with Blaine's new beginning written in elegant script across the top. "I thought about writing, 'Happy Birthday,'" she explained, "but this seemed more fitting." As everyone sang and cheered, I was struck by the contrast between this celebration and the last one. There was no tension here, no walking on eggshells, no bracing for the next disruption. Just genuine connection and joy. After the cake was served, Aunt Janet raised her glass of lemonade. "I'd like to propose a toast," she announced. "To Blaine, who taught us all something about courage this year. Not the flashy kind of courage that makes headlines, but the quiet, consistent courage of standing in your truth, even when it would be easier not to." Glasses were raised all around, accompanied by cheers and words of agreement. I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the autumn sunshine, and everything to do with being truly seen and valued. As the afternoon continued, I circulated among my guests, engaging in conversations that ranged from lighthearted to deeply meaningful. My friend from the hiking club, Sarah, pulled me aside at one point. "I know this past year has been incredibly hard for you," she said, "but I hope you can see how much stronger you've become. When we first started hiking together, you would constantly check your phone, always worried about missing a call from your family. You seemed tense, like you were carrying this invisible weight. Now you're present. You laugh more. You take risks on challenging trails. It's like watching someone gradually stand taller." Her observation struck me because I had felt the change internally, but hadn't realized it was so visible externally. The constant background anxiety that had been my companion for so many years had receded, not completely gone, but no longer dominating my emotional landscape. As evening approached, and people began to depart, each with a warm goodbye, and often a heartfelt expression of what our friendship meant to them, I felt a sense of fullness that had nothing to do with the abundant food we had shared. This, I realized, was what healthy community felt like. Not perfect people, but people committed to treating each other with respect and kindness, to supporting rather than exploiting one another. After the last guest had left and I was packing up the few remaining items, my phone rang. It was my mother. I hesitated before answering. "Happy birthday, Blaine," she said, her voice carrying a formality that hadn't been there before our estrangement. "Thank you, Mom. Did you have a nice day?" "I did, actually. Very nice." A pause, then. "That's good. I'm glad." Another pause. "Your father and I have been talking. We thought maybe you might want to come for dinner sometime. Just the three of us." It was the first invitation that hadn't carried implicit pressure to reconcile with Travis or resume financial support. A small step, but significant. "I'd like that, Mom. Maybe next week." Next week would be good. After we hung up, I sat on a park bench watching the sun begin its descent. I had no illusions that one dinner invitation signaled a complete transformation in my parents' attitudes or the family dynamics. The path forward would still have difficult moments, misunderstandings, old patterns reasserting themselves. Travis and I might never fully repair our relationship. Logan might continue down his troubling path. My parents might never fully understand or support the boundaries I had set. But I had changed fundamentally and permanently. I had learned that setting boundaries wasn't selfish but necessary. That helping others didn't mean sacrificing my own well-being, that true family could be found in bonds of mutual respect rather than mere biology. The cake incident had been a breaking point, but the cracks had been forming for years. In facing that rupture head-on rather than plastering over it as I had always done before, I had created space for authentic healing to begin, not just for myself, but potentially for others in my family as well. As I drove home in the gathering dusk, I reflected on the painful truth that sometimes the most loving thing we can do for others is to stop shielding them from the consequences of their actions. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to recognize when relationships have become harmful rather than nurturing. My story doesn't have a neat Hollywood ending where everyone learns their lesson and apologizes. Real life is messier. Progress is slower. And some wounds never fully heal. But in standing firm in my own truth, in refusing to continue destructive patterns for the sake of false harmony, I had found a peace I never knew was possible. What about you? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members, or have you struggled with enabling behaviors that ultimately hurt both you and the other person? Let me know in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complex family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the family you choose is every bit as important as the family you're born into.